Well, they are pulling out all the stops to win over undecided voters. Democratic candidate Kamala Harris is being joined by both former President Barack Obama and rock star Bruce Springsteen today. Donald Trump, meanwhile, is courting voters in Tempe, Arizona and Las Vegas. But with the election drawing ever closer, there are fewer and fewer people left to win over, as Matthew Mary Carity explains.
At a town hall event outside Philadelphia, Kamala Harris honed her message to undecided voters. She reiterated that Donald Trump is unstable, unfit to serve, and a threat to the nation's core principles. She also pointed repeatedly to former senior military figures from Trump's administration who have called him a fascist and claimed he spoke enviously of Adolf Hitler's Nazi generals.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted.
With less than 2 weeks left before the presidential election, both Harris and Trump are trying to attract voters that can tip the balance in the extremely close contest. But rather than focusing on policy differences with each other, the two candidates have preferred to cast aspersions. In Georgia, another swing state, Trump called Harris crazy, the worst ever, loony, and a low IQ individual.
This election is a choice between whether we will have 4 more years of incompetence, failure, and disaster, or whether we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country.
Pollsters have found that less than 5% of the American electorate is still undecided between Harris and Trump. Both camps are focusing on younger voters, especially those that are Black or Latino. The Harris campaign is also trying to persuade Republican women who are repelled by Trump.
For the very latest, let's cross live now to France 24's Fraser Jackson. Fraser, you are out on the campaign trail in battleground state Pennsylvania. It looks like that state could end up going either way. What are voters telling you?
Yeah, it really is a true definition of a toss-up when it comes to Pennsylvania, and the candidates know that. They now then are kind of changing tactics to what you would normally expect. What you would expect normally would be Kamala Harris to be places like this in Philadelphia, a blue stronghold, Donald Trump to be in his counties in the more rural parts of the state, but actually it's the inverse, because that thin margin of votes is where this state is going to come down to. So Donald Trump is now spending more time in Pennsylvania, in places like Philadelphia, where he's trying to win a slightly bigger section of the population, notably among Latinos and Latinas, and also among Black men as well. And Kamala Harris, meanwhile, is also out in the more rural parts of the state trying to shave down the margins Donald Trump gets as well. And this really is the definition of a marginal election, and you can feel that when you speak to the voters. Philadelphia, like I said, a Democratic stronghold. You definitely do hear more of that Democratic message here than most other parts of the state. But when you go into other parts of the outskirts of Philadelphia and the south of Philadelphia, that's when you start to hear some differences of opinion. The swing voters that I've spoken to say that they need something more definitive from Kamala Harris. They want to know what she's going to do to make their lives better. Donald Trump polls better with these people on things like the border, on things like the economy. She needs to change the narrative and make these people feel like she is the choice for them. They also say that they want to hear something different to what she's done for the last 4 years with the Biden administration. She has been pushed upon this topic multiple times over the course of the last couple of weeks, notably on The View and then on a couple of different TV shows and again at the CNN town hall late on Wednesday evening. But so far she hasn't really come up with a reason or a way that she will be different. She said that her experiences will make her lead differently, but she hasn't really given anything concrete. So a couple of dodged answers aren't doing anything to assuage the concerns of those critical undecided voters which will decide this election.
And Fraser, as you've been speaking to us, her Republican rival Donald Trump, he's taken to the stage there in Tempe to speak to supporters. Now, before you went to Pennsylvania, you caught up with one of America's most famous pollsters, I believe. What did he tell you about the race?
Yeah, we had a briefing with Frank Luntz just a couple of days ago. He is one of the most respected and well-known pollsters here in the United States. And what he said was kind of fascinating, to be honest. Again, this marginal election, we say that a lot. We say this is a toss-up, it's too close to call. Well, the quote from Frank Luntz was that anybody who calls this election is a, quote, idiot. He himself says that it is too close to call and says that really the states that he's looking at the most are Michigan and here in Pennsylvania, where it is too difficult to make a decision, and it's basically going to come down to who shows up on election day and who puts their mail-in ballots into the mailbox. A couple of points from that. He said that the issues that resonate most with low-income to middle-income people are food and fuel, and for those with a slightly higher income, the middle to richer people, it's housing and healthcare. Of course, all four of those points have been tried to be touched upon by the candidates. And he also said that one of the things he thinks is going to really affect Kamala Harris's electability is her ability to divide herself away from Joe Biden and to move away from the administration that she's been a member of for the last 4 years. Again, something she's been having difficulty doing in the last couple of weeks. He also says that it's hard to get a reading because the focus groups that he does about 2 of them a week, aren't precise enough to understand what's going on in those small communities where this election will be won and lost. And really, he was actually quite kind of pessimistic when we were talking to him. He said that all of the normal keys that we have for an election, all the normal kind of way markers don't seem to matter anymore. He said that now the perception of truth is what matters, not the truth itself. So a bit of a note of pessimism from Luntz there. I'll leave you with this. He mentioned about the future. He said that whoever wins this election, there is going to be a societal problem that faces the winner of that election because in his poll, 1/3 of the people that he polled said that they don't feel invested in the future of America. And when you ask the 65 and older, the generation who's seen most of the problems that the US has experienced over the last half century or so, 90% of them said that the US is more divided than ever.
A lot to think about there. Fraser, thank you so much for joining us. That's Fraser Jackson joining us from that key battleground state, Pennsylvania. Let's move on to other world news.